Welcome back to the show. You're listening to Psychology 101.5. Today we have a special guest, the up-and-coming Mr. Abraham Maslow. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Maslow.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Maslow, could you introduce yourself and the work that you do for our listeners?
Absolutely. I'm currently working in the groundbreaking field of humanistic psychology. Humanistic psychology is a branch of psychology that focuses on personal growth and achievement of maximum potential by each unique individual.
That's very interesting. What is the goal of your work?
In my work, I try to help my clients by helping them see themselves in a more positive regard, and I help them to find success by utilizing their talent and potential. You see, I try to be very positive in my work.
How effective do you think your approach is for your clients?
I think that it is important that each individual is able to realize their potential, and in doing so, they can become happier people. This idea is the basis of my theory of self-actualization. A person who is self-actualized is able to accept themselves for who they are. They do not try to be someone who they are not because they know themselves well enough to maintain their integrity in negative situations. Before an individual can become self-actualized, their basic needs must be met. These basic needs include physiological needs such as food, water, sleep, and shelter. From there, an individual builds himself up until they become self-actualized and are able to be creative, problem-solving, and act within morality and be accepting of others.
That's a fascinating theory. How are you able to come up with this?
Well, the basis of my theory was based on my observations of successful people in our society. I actually began my study of human behavior in 1941 at the Brooklyn College, where I studied my two mentors, Ruth Benedict and Max Wertheimer. They inspired me to begin my research into the behavior of successful people. Both of my mentors were incredibly accomplished individuals, and I admired them for their positivity.
Where did you go from there?
I began inquiring into the lives of other exceptional individuals. Throughout my work, I even studied Abraham Lincoln and Albert Einstein.
That's extraordinary. What did you learn from your observations?
I found that the most successful people are those who can adjust in great times of emotional strife and, as a result, become more productive. They experience moments of intense satisfaction, and I believe that these peak experiences are what drives them to be creative.
That's a very different outlook on human behavior than what I have heard of. What are your thoughts on the theories of psychology that exist today?
The two dominating branches of psychology that currently exist are behaviorism and psychoanalysis. Interestingly enough, these two branches are very similar in that they both have a negative view on human behavior. This pessimistic view is what drove me to create a theory completely contrasting those before it. Where behaviorism and psychoanalysis focus on determining what was wrong with an individual, my approach focuses on helping an individual succeed and the positive aspects of human behavior.
There's been some controversy over your approach in the news lately. Some critics have said that your approach is very biased, since it focuses solely on the positive aspects of human behavior. Many claim that your observations of self-actualized people are opinionated, subjective, and invalid. What are your thoughts on this?
Human behavior is very difficult to quantify and measure, and by doing so, you are limiting the value of your results. My critics are desperate for empirical data, and this prevents them from analyzing results from different perspectives. While I disagree with the negative approach of behaviorism, you need both a positive and a negative approach to study something as complex as human behavior.
How do you foresee the future of humanistic psychology?
Well, there are two promising bright psychologists that have been contributing to the development of humanistic psychology. Carl Rogers' views are very similar to mine in that he views his clients in a positive regard. Rogers focuses on developing a positive view of oneself by rejecting conditions of self-worth. Conditions of worth are requirements that must be met by an individual in order to receive positive regards from their friends and family.
How do conditions of worth influence the way someone behaves?
Well, conditions of worth are restrictions created by oneself to suppress negative aspects of their personality in order to please others. For example, a man learns that his mother becomes cold and distant from him when he gets angry. As a result, he tries to suppress his feelings of anger. By restricting this part of his personality, he experiences only a part of his whole being.
I'm sure that's something a lot of our listeners could relate to. What does Rogers believe is a solution for this?
The solution is to develop unconditional positive regard for others. Unconditional positive regard conveys the feelings that those around you accept you as a person for every aspect of your personality. An individual becomes fully functioning in the sense that he's able to develop all their potential and be able to all their feelings.
So, you've talked about Carl Rogers, but you mentioned that there were two up-and-coming psychologists. Who is the second one?
Recently, a psychologist by the name of George Kelly is developing the idea of personal construct theory. It is based on the analysis of our perceptions of ourselves and our environments. And an individual's personality is made up of both negative and positive thoughts of ourselves. The intriguing part of his theory is that he believes that we can predict future behavior based on how we reacted in the past.
Well, Mr. Maslow, I think the work that you and these other humanistic psychologists have done is truly incredible and novel. It's been a pleasure having you join us on the show.
And thank you again for having me.
We'd love to have you on the show again, but sadly, our time is up. You're listening to Psychology 101.5. Check back next week for our segment on the crazy historical approaches to psychology. Here's a sneak peek. It was once thought that the shape of your head could reveal your personality. This is Jacqueline, signing off.